about the man. It was not Africa at all. Here, you all remember all these queens, Queen Nefertiti, you know, of the Zulu Empire there. You see Queen Nandi. You see the Empire of Congo. You have Queen Nzinga. These are Africans who rule. I'm not talking about Egypt and Kush now. This is inside sub-Saharan Africa. You saw Emperor Emenes from Ethiopia. You have their Queen Nzinga that rule in Congo. So where is this coming from? This myth that Africa was the one who prevented women to rule, I think is a mythological story that we will remove from our history and face the reality that the patriarchy that we are facing is actually borrowed culture that have come into Africa. That's what I wanted to share, Edward.
Yeah, I know, but that is why I said I did not say it is African culture. I said maybe it is African culture. That is what I'm saying, because we shouldn't forget about the fact that there are certain also culture in Africa that have actually been preventing the development of women. I know the European culture, sentimental way of behaving may come with a patriarchal way of societal system. But similarly, most of our culture and tradition in Africa did not establish the strongest foundation for women to develop. If it are not so, women would have been strong.
That's why I disagree with you, Edward. Where are you getting that from? I just gave you.
You
just gave you recorded evidence in stone, and you are still looking at the evidence, because the issue here is that we have an agrarian, we are agricultural people. Let's go to our villages. Let's leave Egypt and Sudan and all the great empire. Let's go to our villages and leave the city, where we have agrarian culture of our fathers having farms. Do you see our mothers playing role in the agricultural setting? They are in charge of the economy. And you see our women are in charge of the market. And you see our mothers having farms. Where did we oppress the woman?
It's a relegated role that is more or less domesticated to home.
No. We have an economy, and somebody who runs the market and shop is a domesticated job.
But listen, when you check into our typical African traditional setting, you see women playing domesticated role instead of allowing them to lead. I'm not saying some of our culture.
What do you mean by our typical? What is our typical culture? What do you mean by our typical? I just gave you our classical culture. That is 1000 BC. How old can that be?
The typical African culture,
yeah,
is a masculine one.
No.
The typical African culture is a masculine one.
No. What scholar can you cite? What scholar can you cite? I can cite African historian. Our typical culture is matrilineal. Patriarchal culture is from Europe and Arabia. The evil come to the world through the woman in Christianity and Islam. Evil come to the world through woman. You can never find such story in Africa. The woman is relegated. God is a man in patriarchal religion. You have female goddess in African spirituality. Do you have a female god in Christianity and Islam? There is no way. There is no typical African culture oppressing women. You might find individual or very few isolated people doing stuff, but you cannot call it typical. When it is typical, that means it is at the origin of the culture. And I just gave you the origin of the culture here, where women rule empires. And at the time these women were ruling, there was no single woman had ruled anytime. Okay, I just show you Egypt. Or black people were ruling Egypt. Since the Arab took over Egypt, what woman has ever ruled?
In my submission, I did not dispute the fact that African cultures do not empower women, but there are certain African cultures that we are not created for the empowerment of women. It relegated them.
Example.
You only watch when you talk about Egypt. You always cite example of Egypt. I
cited Congo. I cited Zinga. I cited Kush. Yeah.
Only few. Can you name any woman with the exception of the emancipation of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf into our own 21st century, who has actually been playing key role? If when you watch our parliament system, our cabinet system, I'm not saying women are not there, but women actually have limited role to play. There are certain places, even into Sierra Leone here, where they would never allow a woman to become a paramount chief. There are certain chief zones when they were certain constituency, if a woman decides to become an MP, they will even institute other things that may prevent you. Now, because of liberal democracy and other things are happening, We are now accepting, we are conceptualizing these things. I'm not saying African culture do not empower women, but some culture in Africa serve as a predicament towards the development of women in leadership. That is what I'm saying. I agree with the fact that some culture empower women, like the one that was established in Egypt, Congo, and other that you have established. Women were empowered, but you can maybe some Liberians listening to me can even agree with me. There are certain chiefs done in Liberia as well as in Syria. They would never allow a woman to become a paramount chief. Least of it to become what? That is why even when you are seeing, if our culture have not militated against the development of women in leadership, many a time if a woman vows to become a member of parliament, even you see during time of campaign, she's being intimidated, harassed, molested, and all of these things. So that is what I'm putting forward here.
Okay, I get your point, but what I'm trying to stress is there is always this tendency for Black people to always look for the negative and put Africa into it and say the problem came from Africa, our African culture, and then it is the adoption of the Western liberal democracy that have given women power. I consider that to be false. I am saying our encounter with the European as is what even led to the oppression of women, because they are the one during the colonial era created a position you call paramount chief. There was no such thing as paramount chief in ancient Africa. We are our chief and our king. These paramount chief positions that you are mentioning, these were colonially created. And
we are king and queen, but certainly certain chiefdoms, certain clans into Liberia never are permitted or allowed a woman to become their king, their queen. Certain clans are masculine. So it was not a general phenomenon. It was limited to certain places. And those areas where women were not given the opportunity to vie for such position, their development into leadership became appalling. Other places where women were empowered, their development into, that is why some women, when they behave, their other colleagues see it so where those who have not been given the opportunity to act like male, because they feel that gender, instead of, because gender is just one idea, you sit down, this one should be based on this one should be the role of a man, this other one should be the role of a female. So where gender role limit a woman to domesticated work, they see a woman who behaves like a man very well. But I'm not disputing the fact that some cultures do not actually empower women, but some actually have militated the development of women, and they belong typically to Africans.
No, I totally reject the idea of putting it typical to Africa. Right there in West Africa, we have the kingdom of Dahomey, where all the soldier regiments were women. The Dahomey kingdom is right there in West Africa. All the women, all the soldiers that rule. So a leadership position is not limited to being king or being the overall leader. There are different positions of leadership. In Liberia, that you make example of, our ethnic group have the Poro and the Sunday Society. These were divided male and female. And all these Poro, it was a social and educational institution. Women were given power in both the Poro Sunday Society. Each of these two organizations, this was a sign of equality, by the way, so that all the institutions, women had power. When it comes to economic and agriculture, women were at the forefront. The men made the farm, the women do the harvest, they were in charge of the economy. In all West African society, the market is controlled by women. There is no domestication, there is not a domestic wife who go out to do economy. Where you have domestic women in Arabia and other European culture, the woman does not go out. She is locked up. The man is the one who brings food like a bird for her to just cook and bear children. Our mothers have farms, they have go fishing, they have market, they sell. So I think we should build on those traditional institutions, consider them as blessing and improve them, and not always take the myth that the European actually brought the idea of liberating women and we are being civilized is a mythological story that has no foundation in the historical record, as I showed. That's all I wanted to prove.
Anyway, I advise we drop this topic for another day. We have to come with a healthy thing on the back and prove you beyond reasonable doubt that women, most of our African culture or some of our African culture and tradition have been actually a serious obstacle towards the development of women into leadership.
Okay. All right, we disagreed on that. So let's take us to the second topic. Vote buying claims mar Zimbabwe by elections. So tell us about this, Edward. What's happening in Zimbabwe?
We all know Zimbabwe has been ruled by the ZANU-PF before I was born, and most people into my age, we actually given back to. ZANU-PF had been led by the late man, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who was seen as a liberator, and they have been ruled on that typical one-party system way of leadership. Unfortunately, we saw Mnangagwa taking over power after Robert Gabriel Mugabe was maybe civilizedly overthrown when they realized that Grace Mugabe was having the intention to take over the leadership of the party, and since he's not a world veteran, and Zimbabwe have actually been led by people of strong link with the ZANU-PF party. We are seeing another young, vibrant leader coming into power, one who has already taken over the opposition party. He was actually having the conviction that the Zimbabweans are exhausted with the type of leadership that they have been undergoing for decades ago, and their belief was that when it comes now to the change of leadership, I think they had that concerted belief that it was time that even the leadership into Zimbabwe should be changed. Like they should have new councillors coming up. They should have new members of parliament who belong to different political parties. But we are now seeing a situation where, because of sanctions being leveled against the leadership of Emerson Mnangagwa, known as the crocodile, who took over power in sometime of 2019 2019 when Robert Gabriel Mugabe was overthrown. Now Mnangagwa is now in power. Elections have been organized. Unfortunately, these elections have been popularly rigged by this same ruling party. Now we are now talking about vote buying. Vote buying is just a cheap way where political parties, especially incumbents, rig election into Africa. And Zimbabwe, being a one that is established in terms of corrupt political leadership, cannot be taken as an exception. People, you may see during the time of campaign, people will definitely come out to campaign in the name of the opposition, but because of intimidation, harassment, and a lot of people in Zimbabwe, in fact, some health workers are being paid less than $10 or $15 per month. So you see, people barely have the opportunity to feed on their daily wages. So what they normally do, the politicians will create a situation they will create a space where the commoners or the layman or the common man into a country will find himself into a very vulnerable position that without taking bribes, they can eat because it is a conscious deal that they are doing. Consciously, they are aware of the fact that what they are doing is wrong, but they have little or no option. So we are now seeing a situation where the ruling ZANU-PF party, now led by Emerson Mnangagwa, has naturally lost its popularity among the young Zimbabweans who are no longer subscribing to the mentality of this party liberated Zimbabwe, because that liberation struggle happens in the early 80s, 90s, the 20s, and we're in the 21st century now. Still, development has not been changed, and most Zimbabweans do not even know any other political party that has ever ruled them rather than the ZANU-PF party. So there's that indication that there is a total change. But now, a situation where the opposition do not have enough money, because one of the way they cripple political development or other political party development into Africa is to create a situation where the opposition be subject to bankruptcy. So even enough money to campaign is not with them. So people actually they buy votes. And in by-election is not like a general election. You only have a few targeted people. So if the government think and feel that they are going to lose that particular election, what they normally do, they pump money overnight to these few voters who are trained and who are qualified to do their voting, because it's a limited franchise. It's not a one that is general. It's only limited to that particular constituency. So that's why when Chamisa came out to complain, it was accepted and everybody understood it. In the first place, it's not financially viable or strong to contest against the ruling ZANU-PF party. And the candidate that was sent over there may not be popular compared to Chamisa's party, but the ruling party has that financial background that they can easily bribe over these people. And because of the COVID-19, COVID-19 have taken a serious toll on Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwe economy was already hit by sanctions, And now we are seeing the current Ukraine crisis. Everything has just taken over, and the entire world development has dwindled down, and people are left with little or no option rather than to be given few Zimbabwean dollars and they will go ahead to vote. So that was why the opposition came to qualify that they lost the election because of vote buying. It was accepted, but it is because of the type of vulnerable condition people are living in. And it happens everywhere.
Definitely. This is very, very serious and it's worrying because Zimbabwe, I believe this man, Mnangagwa, is becoming unpopular. It's very obvious that he's becoming unpopular. He took over from Robert Mugabe, and it seems like he has not really brought the change that the people were anticipating. It's like the people move from frying pan to fire. I think this is what Mnangagwa's situation has become. And actually, to defeat ZANU-PF party in the ballot box is going to be very difficult because these are people that have been there since they toppled the white regime. Okay, since the day of Rhodesia, since they changed from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, that ZANU-PF party is the revolutionary party that quote unquote liberated the people. So they have all grounds, they have the grassroots, they have the money, they have the institution. So to go and defeat them on the field, I don't think it's not that it's impossible, but actually it will require a very serious revolution, just like Nigeria, to defeat these two corrupt ruling parties, PDP and then APC, is hard because the country is already, the people are used to those two great parties and they have their branches all over and they have the money. So how do you defeat these people without a revolution? So Zimbabwe issue, I'm afraid that it might deteriorate to a point that they might have to remove Mnangagwa either by popular protest or some kind of revolt that will kind of remove him. Otherwise, I don't see ZANU-PF continuing to rule Zimbabwe in peace. Just like they did in South Africa, I don't really see the hope of these one party continuing to rule these countries. Amid all these kind of election malpractices. They have to cheat every election. They use money. They use thugs to win. So it's really going to be difficult for Zimbabweans to free themselves from this ZANU-PF party without a revolution. And I hope the young people in that country can really wake up and see that there is a need to overthrow these people. Because when the country, there is no progress, from one thing to another. Because let me tell you how these politicians survive. They survive by tribalism. They survive using money. They survive by, trusting the ignorant of the people. They make sure that the voter majority of people are ignorant of the reality. And then they also use the tribal card to say they are from this ethnic group to keep themselves in power. But if the poor masses can really be educated and say that, no, the struggle of the masses is one. We want poverty, we want liberation, we want clean running water, we want housing, we want education. So we don't really care about tribe. If such a revolution can happen, it will be easy to change the system. So I think what is holding most of this system hostage is some of these ethnic differences, religious differences. The politicians are using these things to be able to hold the people captives. And I'm afraid for Zimbabwe. I'm really, really afraid for Zimbabwe because nothing good is going to come out of this regime of Mnangagwa. Do you see, Edward, a coup d'etat or do you see a popular uprising to remove this party?
Well, I'm not sensing any coup d'etat because in the first place, Zimbabwe is one of the countries into Africa that are the highest number of literate people. If coup d'etat were to happen, it would have actually happened during the days of Robert Mugabe. But they have put on with a lot of burden throughout those days, and now we are seeing a more liberal society, where people who are no longer subscribing to the original mentality of ZANU-PF. But the problem now with Zimbabwe is like the liberation struggle and the main goal of ZANU-PF. Mind you, one of the main things that ZANU-PF did for the Zimbabweans was to empower them. That is one, especially the literate, those who are living in the hinterland, in the hard to reach area. They gave them the power by taking away, seizing the land from the white ownership and giving this land same to the black. So always they have been brainwashed that if they allowed another political party to take over the leadership of Zimbabwe, the very land that they are surviving on may be taken away from them. So we are now seeing a clash of generation here. Those generation who no longer, who did not even witness the revolution movement, who do not know anything important. They may know now because they are living in an independent society, but they don't know the quality or what qualifies actually somebody to become a veteran because they are no longer being blown by such wind. So they have a different phenomena. That is why you are seeing Chamiza, who is now a new leader, campaigning. So they have young people, but they still have people who are still subscribing to that mentality that if there had not been ZANU here, this land wouldn't have been mine. So maybe we can only see if Mnangagwa can go. But even when Mnangagwa goes, another person who has a strong link with the world veteran will definitely take him. And for a coup d'etat to take place in the country like Zimbabwe is very, very difficult because if a dictator takes over 20 or 30 years in power, they normally do, they empower the military, they empower the police. Right. And these police have amassed riches overnight. The army have amassed riches overnight. So if they allow somebody from the blues to just take over power, definitely their heads are going to rule. It is just like what is happening today in the Sudan. Everything may be taken away from them. We have seen that happening in Myanmar or Burma, where the Tramando are leading. When Aung San Suu Kyi took over, they created all sorts of situation for her. Now she's under house arrest because she wanted to institute certain things that may definitely cripple the military. And this military have tasted power for long. In fact, they have certain seats into the cabinet system. Should only be given to the military really. It shouldn't be any other person because they believe that Burma is a military country. And this thing has been going. Maybe it's a kind of generational blunder from day of independence. This thing has been there. And Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe was actually a leader, but he was a revolutionary leader. He was not somebody who had diplomatic mentality. Right. It is just like, you see, Nelson Mandela was a bit different from him. He was both a revolutionist. They always say that he was somebody who was the type of leader who is believed really into normal leadership. But when he came, he still behaved into that revolution. Now, he has empowered those corrupt set. All of those things, just a type of continuous generation. Except something happened beyond the ordinary. But for now, I don't sense any coup d'etat.
All right. Now we don't sense any coup d'etat. We don't pray for coup d'etat anyway, but we really hope that these corrupt leaders should be removed, and what they should be removed. It's not healthy to have Mnangagwa. This Kamisa guy, tell us a little bit about him. Is he? Because I remember, he was since the other opposition guy passed away. What was his name? Changarai died. I think the only person who have come on the scene to challenge this ruling party is this Kamisa, and he was very outspoken. I watched some of his video during the last election. He was outspoken. He's very, very charismatic. What do you know about him? Is he a good guy? Is he someone we should look up to in the future? Does he have any Pan-Africanist vibes?
Well, when you watch at it, of course, I may say he have a Pan-Africanist vibe and he believe into the liberation of Zimbabwe, maybe taking away the old folks out of power. And you have another strong leader by the name of Tendai Biti. Tendai Biti has also been another outspoken person. He was also one, I think he couldn't be like a trusted politician because he also served under, because mind you, Morgan Tsvangirai once served as Robert Gabriel Mugabe Prime Minister. And Tendai Biti was very phenomenal and key into the leadership of that particular party. But after the death of Morgan Tsvangirai, that election, he was being arrested, detained. So it's not been seen as somebody who may definitely qualify Chamiza's leadership. Of course, Chamiza is popular when you talk about youth leadership. They see him as a liberator, somebody who may definitely change the leadership of Zimbabwe to another standard. The other thing, he's not economically viable. He may be eloquent, educated, and he has that charisma in trying to organize youth, but he does not have any military or police backing. So that limits his chances of becoming a leader of Zimbabwe, even in the next 10 or 15 years. I have seen comedians who have subscribed themselves to, they are being calibrated with something positive and subscribing themselves to the new millennium, the new waves of dispensation of things. And those people have actually been arrested, detained, and tortured. Most of them are living. Even Gabriel, maybe he would have become closer to disgruntled to Grace Mugabe. But Grace also cannot become closer to Chamisa, because if she becomes closer to Chamisa, it's like she's trying to put the wealth that Mugabe amassed overnight. The ZANU-PF party may end up to seize those things. So he's just a man wandering into the wilderness, maybe seeking for help. But those who can actually compile power on in Zimbabwe, because we're not even watching at the National Electoral Commission. You watch at the police, they have the secret police, they have the national police, and they have also those guys that the military. So all of these things are really creating trouble. So he has not been able to get that absolute support from the military, neither the police. So he may be there just trying to be like sounding as a wake-up call. Maybe he may, because look at what happened with Tangura started as a young man into opposition, and he died as an opposition leader. I'm afraid, but I'm seeing him going down that trail. Though as time goes by, maybe the phenomenon will change. And if you have leadership who are being promoted into the leadership or into the army of Zimbabwe, maybe that may also help. Because even when you watch at the promotion into the Zimbabwe army, you can only be promoted to certain position where you can take order if you belong to the war veterans. They cannot just give you position because you came. Those who do not taste the wave of the liberation are not just promoted. So we are talking about a group of leaders who emanate from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. So in 10 to 15 years, they may be facing up a little bit. So we have different type of people who are leading the army. There's a possibility that change may happen.
Thank you, Edward Amara, for giving our details there on the issue of Zimbabwe. We'll take a short break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll just be back in less than a minute. Please stay with us. Don't go.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus.
Thank you for watching Focus on Liberia. This is Roundtable Africa, where we bring you the latest news or news that make headlines across the continent of Africa. I'm your host, Sekou Kele, and I'm here with my co-host, Edward Amara, who is also the West African correspondent for Focus on Liberia. And we are bringing you the best from around the continent. And this brings us to the third issue here, Edward Amara. Burkina Faso, Francis Kere, first African to win the Pritzker Architecture Prize. I have a few slides here to discuss on this guy a little bit. Then I will also, give you a few questions to discuss the issue of architecture in Africa when it comes to how we build, how environmental conscious we are, and how should African actually build houses based on their indigenous design and also try to be unique in their own way. We'll talk about that a little bit. So I'll share this slide. Let me stop sharing this. So Dr. Francis Kere, he's an Afrocentric architect, as I call him. He doesn't call himself Afrocentric, but I believe he's an Afrocentric architect. Recently, he won the Pritzker Architecture Prize 2002, first African to win this prize and first Black man to win this prize. It's a very, very important prize. It shows that you have done something remarkable in the field of architecture. But here's what he said. He said, Africans must stop copying Europeans or Asian architecture, but copy from the designs of their ancestors. So what he's trying to say here is that when Africans go to school and they become architects, they want to replicate the buildings of Paris in Africa. They want to replicate all these things. There's nothing wrong in borrowing, but sometimes we have to also look at the unique design. There was a reason our ancestors built their buildings the way they built them. You know, they consider the environment, they consider the temperature. So we shouldn't just replicate buildings that we see in other countries. We have to look at the unique style or from our own culture. So this is what this man has done. That's why I believe he got this prize. You know, here is the latest job that he's doing in Benin. So the Benin Parliament invited him to build the house for their legislature. So they gave him a design, I think from Europe or so. So he told them, no, in your history, in your traditional culture, where do your ancestors meet to discuss issues of the village or the town, what we call traditional democracy, where people come all together and have consensus on issues that affect the community? So they said, well, their ancestors used to sit under a tree. So he said, then that is an inspiration. So I have to design a building that gave that flavor, that gave you that idea of a tree, you know. So he designed a very beautiful building that looked like a baobab tree, you know, to the people, referencing their culture, referencing their traditional history, but also bringing it into a modern light. So this is what he has done. He has done it across the continent, and that's what made him unique. In his hometown, when he studied actually in Germany, when he came back, he decided to build, you know, a school in his village. So the people were like, okay, how do we buy cement and all this import stuff? He said, no, we have to use the local material that we have, the clay. So they were like, how will you come back from Germany and ask us to build school using clay? He said, well, that's what we have to do, because there are some benefits. There's a reason why our ancestors used clay to build their houses, because we live in a hot environment. So we want during the day, our house should be cool inside. And, you know, it should be cool inside when the sun is shining. So we have to build buildings that actually that reflect our environment. So he made these clay bricks, mud bricks like this, fixed them, and he built some of the best school. I mean, the design was so perfect that medias around the world went there to look at it. And then he was able to do this thing, and the people were amazed. Here is a Septennial pavilion that he built, I think somewhere in Europe. It was also inspired by the baobab tree. The baobab tree, if you know it, in West Africa, are these big trees. You know, they live for like 100 years, but they are very big trees that people sit under them and have meetings. He used that inspiration, you know, to build some of his design. So for me, he's an inspiration for Africans out there that are into architecture. You don't have to replicate everything. That's not the essence of education. The essence of education is not to sharpen your mind so that you can tap into your own inspiration. It's not for you to replicate knowledge. It's not for you to regurgitate what other people have done. So there are people think that's what education is. The essence of being educated is actually to sharpen your mind to make right judgment in order for you to have knowledge and the skills to be able to do new things. You see? So there are a lot of things beyond architecture that Africans, we have now to look into our culture. We have to now reference our own culture. Let me stop sharing. We have to now reference our own culture, get inspiration so that we build. Our buildings should not be based on what we see out there. Okay, there's a reason Chinese build the way they build. There's a reason why Chinese, when you see a building, you say, this is Chinese architecture. When you see building, you say, this is a French architecture, European architecture. So why is it that we think that there is no such thing as African architecture or African design? So this is time that our education should be, you know, to our educational institution begin to look into this. People should now be offering courses in African architecture so that we start building buildings that reflect our environment, that reflect our culture. Edward, what do you want to say about that?
No, thank you very much. I think you said most of what I was thinking about. However, to make an addendum, I think our society have been Europeanized. Our mentality have been changed. I think we have typical buildings that have the reflection of Africa. When you set eyes on them, you think about Mama Africa, because these are typical reflection of what represents us as African. Our breedings should be part of our own culture. Unfortunately, we have developed a type of educational system that have condemned the typical African way of life. As Dr. Kerry has won the, I think this is a grand prize. To me, it's like a Nobel, something that is so phenomenal. He's the first Black African to win such thing. That means that Africans have never been proud with what they have, their own culture. So if somebody have gone and studied into Germany, made his way back into Burkina Faso, and carefully constructed those things that have typical African reflection, then this should be like a wake-up call to even our educational system. How can we propagate our own African culture when we are ignoring it into the schools that our children are going? Because they should have people like that. Not that Africa do not have typical traditional buildings. We do. Not that Africa do not have certain things that identify us as Africans. We do. But those things are not being written into the memory of our students. We are allowing them to be taught everything that are Eurocentric. And if those things, they are Europeanizing their brain on a daily basis, what do you expect them to come out? They will come out to things that may definitely condemn things that are Africa. What do you think when it was during the time of colonization, our typical African kings by then used to refuse to give our brothers and sisters to the kings to be even given the opportunity to go and learn into Europe. They will tell you that if such person go like that, they will condemn everything African. The white man will go and Europeanize, and when he comes, he condemn anything that is African culture. It's the exact thing that is happening. So if we have men like this who have started doing these things, maybe it's high time our cultural industry, that the Ministry of Tourism can call people like that on board, let him enlighten them and things like, because we are having a what people of different skill into. That is why the education system is based on the cognitive domain, the Sakamoto domain, and the affective domain. But mainly the Sakamoto is dealing about the skill, the cognitive is dealing about the brain, the affective is dealing about our behavioral pattern. We cannot forget these things. So maybe things like this need to be embedded into our education system. Or else, that is a very good one, but how many people will keep on winning such things? How many of them will be willing to broadcast Africa to the Western world or to other continents? And this is what we have. Mind you, the European invaded Africa when King Mansa, Kanka Musa, and other people decided to attend places like Mecca. When they exposed them with our gold and diamond, they decided to come and take this thing because through the Arab invasion. So these guys have just done that positively, not on a negative basis. So let them involve them. The Ministry of Tourism to take this. I think this is something that has gone global. I have seen these things for quite a long time. But if you ask how many people have been watching at this thing, they condemn it.
Definitely. Definitely. I think it's something they need to look into because, like you rightly said, for the fact that he's the first African to win a prize, a big prize like this in architecture, that says a lot. Not that we have not been having architects. We've had a lot of architects who have done a lot, but replicating people's stuff is not innovation. Replicating people's idea is not innovation. Innovation has to be like tapping into talent, bringing something new, solving problems. You see, that's why I always define my science. I say science is to find definitive solution to practical problem. So if we have practical problems, our environment is hot, we have abundance of sunlight. So how do we build our buildings where we have a lot of rainfall? How do we build our buildings? So if you just replicate buildings like that, then you don't take your environment into consideration, you run into trouble. You see, the same thing applies even, Edward, to our development, how we even develop our infrastructure, our economic. People are running around, building dams, and we have abundance of sunlight in Africa, and we are looking for sources of energy and power where we know that Africa is a continent of solar energy, where our government should have just tapped into the resource you already have is what you need to use. You don't need to say what other people are doing. We should have been having solar power plant all over the continent. Right now, people will have electricity almost free to nothing. You see, Acorn alone came and powered almost how many communities? Just one guy. Imagine if government were doing the same. We have solar energy that we could, in Niger alone, when you build solar farms in that place, can supply most part of the region. But we always want to take ideas from outside, not always looking at what is locally available. What should we do, from what we already have? That's how people develop. So the same thing applies to the educational system, the architecture we are discussing here. Buildings should reflect our environment. Buildings should reflect our culture. We should not always want to replicate Paris and London in Africa. That's not development. That's not how civilized people do things. That's not innovative at all. You see? So really, I appreciate this guy, Francis Carey, and he has opened the door now for young people to begin to see that whenever you reference your culture, whenever you take inspiration from within, the world appreciates you. The world see it as unique. They appreciate it. But when you replicate what other people have, they just see you as a follower, and you have not contributed nothing at all to humanity. That brings us to this second to the last: impunity drives sexual violence in South Sudan. Tell us about that, Edward.
No, it is very unfortunate that South Sudan has been going under
Oh,
a
sorry.
lot of.
I think I jumped. I'm sorry. I think I jumped. This is the second to the last. I'm sorry. 2 allies of former leader Conde arrested after audio. The audio was leaked, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. It seems that Mamadi is kicking. I don't want to use the word asses, but now I think he's kicking asses. What is going on in Guinea?
Well, the young colonel who is 41 years old is not actually in slumber. I think he's an agile leader, astute, and he has been very, very vigilant. We all know Alpha Conde was overthrown in January. He actually pleaded, and now he was sent on a kind of sick leave in Qatar. And now, excuse me, United Arab Emirates. He's there. But as we know, our African leaders, Conde never wanted to leave power. His dream was ever to remain into power into Guinea till death party. So either he quit power or power quit you. I think power quitted him because people invaded him and took over. The man he brought in to secure him ended up to be the one who will definitely seize power from him. So maybe because he has some loyalty, he granted him a kind of sick leave. He went actually in United Arab Emirates. Just like the manner in which Yahya Jammeh is doing into Equatorial Guinea, he has actually been having some amount of communication with his FGP party into Guinea. So what he did, he has a kind of doctor who was entrusted to him. Maybe it could be like a family doctor whom he knows very well, and he requested for Guinea to let that particular doctor travel with him. He did. So the doctor left him in United Arab Emirates. He came back with an audio specifically from, if he leaves India and communicate this audio to his colleagues, they may end up to be leaked along the way. So that particular man came with those audios. So he was actually trying to, the audio actually was meant for Conde to still have some amount of control over the RPG party. And having that control, he does not want Selun Diallo Tule to be given, Selun Diallo, the opposition leader, who is a Fulani by nature, to be given the slightest opportunity to win the election should Mamadi Doumbouya decide to conduct a general election where he has strongly vowed that no military will involve. Then automatically, because the opposition want to manage repetition, maybe win the election. So he doesn't want something like that to happen. So now he's advising the party to know the type of person that should assume the leadership and how to curtail the development of Diallo not to ever become like the leader to be elected. And based on the arrangement that he had with Mamadi Diallo, that he should never involve into any Guinea politics. He should retire henceforth from politics and have nothing to do with the said politics going on into Guinea. So if he's there now giving instruction on what to do, it means he still want to maintain maximum control over the electioneering process into Guinea. Maybe if somebody whom he thinks and feel that should be the right person to succeed in coming to power, if he's blessed to be alive, he could still have control over it. So that was why the doctor was arrested, and the man whom this audio was leaked to was arrested, and they are now living in. They are now being placed under investigation, but in unknown location. So that tells you that Guinea is not too safe, because if audios like that are coming on, it's a possibility. Mind you, we shouldn't dispute the fact that the Mandinka are very huge into Guinea, and they have the Koninka, Madinka, and they have those Maninka. So there is some amount of loyalty, even with the army, that belong to Conde. So if things like that cannot be arrested, let's assume that he started communicating with some of those khaki boys who have the weapons to even overthrow, because we have seen what happened into Mali, coup can happen into coup. So maybe Mamadi want to be more vigilant, set a brighter example, and to ensure that Conde should never have anything to do with it. And it's also endangering his very safety, because he is the overlord of Mamadi, though Mamadi have not taken over. Now the servant is now the new boss. But maybe some amount of concession would have been made. So that's why these guys were arrested, the doctor and the man whom that particular ordeal was leaked to. And they are even investigating, because if they started communicating to those people, there's a possibility that if that one goes successfully, then they might even have the communication within the army. Then Mamadi's position will not be safe.
Definitely. I think one of the brilliant things Mamadi did was not to release Conte immediately after the coup. I think he got an intelligence, because usually what happened is they arrest, and 2 weeks later or 1 month they release the former president, and then that life continued. But what he did was to keep him, and then slowly make sure that he dismantled all his connections, and then dislodge everything that he has mounted in the country before he will be able to let him free. If he has released Conde very early, I think Conde could be able to destabilize his government, because his boys were still in the army, and many of the ministries, secretaries and all that were all his appointees. So I believe Mamadi did the right thing by trying to control the movement of Conde. This shows again, Edward, that the situation in Guinea is not over yet. It's not over yet. It seems that things are on course. Mamadi is doing what he's doing, but there is still a reason to be concerned. There's still a reason to be concerned. If you see that guy smuggling audio in there, he believes that there are still Conde people that are still ready to make some moves, but they are still watching here to see how popular Doumbouya is, how connected Doumbouya is. If they find out that Doumbouya, the slightest mistake that his popularity dwindle, they are going to use that as an opportunity to come after him. So Doumbouya have to make sure he remain very faithful to the people, that he continue to be popular. His popularity should never go down. If he ever make a mistake, the economic, if something happened like the sanction, if ECOWAS sanctioned him and something happened to the economics, and something happened with the Darling Diallo guy that he's trying to, I learned that he's trying to put that one behind bar. If the Fulani people also go against him, he might start falling into trouble, and that will be, and he already know that he's not totally popular among the Manika, even though he is a Manika, but the fact that he removed that old man like that, there are still people who are not happy. So that camp already is fragile for him. So if the Fulani go against him, it might not be a good thing for him. So I believe he's sitting in a very hot seat. He has to make a very calculated moves. He has to make sure he is honest as possible, and he must be quick and hand over power. If he try to, change those documents and say he want to stay, because that's what happens. African leaders, they start as very honest, good soldiers. They're in the middle of it, or they change everything. If he does that, I'm sorry, I think we will see Guinea again going back to choose another leader. That's my own take on this.
Yeah, there is still that Conte-phobic or fever within Guinea, Conde-phobia or fever into Guinea. He has been in power for relatively over 10 years, and this man was also in opposition. For you to become an opposition leader against an established authoritarian like Lassana Conte, survive it through intimidation, imprisonment, torture, it means he's a very tough guy. He has established solid support into Guinea, and before this time, he had managed to maximum his own respect within those guys. So there are two people who own him their life, who can bet you to the teeth that they will protect everything that they want to do. So these are they still have people within the civil service, with the civil and public service, who are very loyal to him. I think you rightly stated. I think Mamadi should be very careful. He should live up to expectation. Maybe follow the social contract that he has signed. Live up to expectation in terms of maintaining the belief that people have for him. and at the end of the day, let him just hand over power quietly. But if he insists, maybe Conde may even accuse him that this man is doing the same thing that he accused me for. If you are not, so why is he refusing to leave power? And right away, even mind you, the opposition are only supporting Conde, Mamadi, because of the promises that he's made. If you decide to negate on them, the next day they will go on street to protest. So they are only supporting him because of the promises that he made. So if he failed to come up with a definitely timeline and he's not doing anything into the interest, don't be surprised that in less than 2 years now we may be seeing people going on the street. And the Guineans are used to demonstration. So they can easily on that. So that is it. That is the problem.
All right. That brings us to our final point here. Second to the last year, Edward, impunity drive sexual violence in South Sudan, the UN report says. So what's been happening there, Edward?
South Sudan is one of the youngest country into Africa anyway. Unfortunately, South Sudan have never enjoyed the peace that they were actually seeking for. Because many thought that if they depart from Sudan and they become an independent country, maybe the Dinkas can organize themselves and be of one blood. Unfortunately, Riek Machar and South Bakir have never come together. South Bakir being the president, Riek Machar being the VP, they have never been together. And we know South Bakir is a kind of he's somebody who fought, most of them fought the liberation with John Garang. Although Riek Machar has never been part and parcel of the SPLA, the Sudanese Liberation Movement. But South Bakir has been there, and he was part of the top generals who managed to ensure that they fight successfully to emancipate, if not create an independent situation for South Sudan to become independent in something around 2011. Now, because of perpetual violence, let's see the culture first, because we all know what rebellion entails, where you have few young people having the opportunity to carry arms and ammunition, and the people are vulnerable. They become brave. And South Sudan is one of the easiest places where women's rights are being disregarded at the end of the day. They can easily rape them, and even those who are seeking for justice can be threatened and do whatsoever about them. Now we are seeing all of these things. The simplest part is that when there is a kind of, if somebody rapes and a serious what punishment is being levied against that person, maybe it will create a situation that others may not follow suit. But the frequent incident of rape into South Sudan, it is because there is no established legal system where people who are found guilty of such are actually punished according to the law. Like day before yesterday, Riek Machar, whom has been seriously guided by armed men, armed to the teeth. Maybe he's now having problem with South Bakir, who is the president. And when the country is because it's full of pandemonium, turmoil, chaos is at the end of the day. And those with arms and ammunition take opportunity to make women their victims. So all of these things are going on. The impunity is there. All of these things are going. So there is no established culture. How long have the UN been reporting upon the rape incident that takes place into South Sudan? And how many successful prosecutions have been made? None. And how peaceful have South Sudan have been? None. So as long as the country is very volatile, now women are subjected to becoming victims of men. So women are definitely prey of men. They become their prey. They get down on it and they do whatever. And the culture of South Sudan also is not helping. They have their own two tribes fighting among themselves. Those guys normally come, they identify themselves with their clans, with their tribe, and they tend to fight. Like the Nubans, all of these things are going on. So it's like each time there is a war or kind of political crisis or chaotic situation into South Sudan, what I normally do, if one tribe meets another one, you are not only being risky, but you can also be raped, tortured, and done whatsoever thing. So even their judicial system is not working. The central government per se is not working. The central government is not working. So as long as the central government is not working, prosecution is not being made, the judicial system is not working effectively, and that particular impunity is now one of the main reasons why people are raping. Because if somebody rapes today and he goes without punishment, another person can still think that I have the opportunity to do the same dirty act, nothing will happen. So UN also is exhausted making, because when you make all of this report, action should be taken. There is no, the report is not being backed up by action. So people have not seen that rape is more or less a kind of lesser crime in society, that anybody can do it and you go court free. So the women also can even be afraid of coming out to be raped or even accuse somebody, because if you accuse somebody of being your rapist and a chaotic situation happen, that person is still on the wrong, he can easily make you another victim. So all of these things are there, and they can easily be threatened because the court system is not working, the central government is not working, there is chaotic situation, almost war. So definitely the situation in South Sudan is a very worst one. This is their 12 years being independent. They have never tasted anything good. 11 years, I mean.
Yeah, brother. It's unfortunate. The situation of South Sudan is very, very unfortunate. You know, sometimes I feel like breaking away was okay, but you know, the African continent itself is not settled. All these breakaway states are going to go through a lot because there are no strong states in Africa to support these countries economically, to support them to be able to stand on their own. They will have to depend on these Western handout and donations again, which impoverish people, which indebt all these nations. So it's really going to be difficult. South Sudan is going through a lot, and unless other states, African states, superpowers come together to help them, they are nowhere. They are going to be their struggle will continue, because I even learned that even the North Sudan, which they broke away from, is still having some control over their oil. They have certain agreement that certain percentage of the oil should be going to them, and then certain percentage to North Sudan. But it seems like North Sudan is doing some corruption in there, and then it also conniving with some of their elite to be stealing oil away from South Sudan so that it will slow down their development. So it's really difficult. Then the tribal issue in that place. South Sudan is highly tribalized between this Dinka and other people. And as you rightly mentioned, the vice president and the president are playing tribal card. And it's very difficult to develop in this situation. This is what we've been telling Africans. We have to detribalize. When people think that detribalization is a joke, it's very serious. If we don't detribalize our consciousness, our educational system, we cannot build on our modern state. We cannot build a modern state with a tribal mentality. Believe it or leave it, we cannot build any powerful state with a tribal mentality. I'm not saying that they should do away with people's tribe, but we should detribalize the mentality. It can be done through the educational system. It can be done through our cultural institution. It can be done in the way we even teach and speak to each other. You see, but as long as this tribal card is being played, as long as we can identify our president with a particular tribe, and he is proud to go identify himself with that tribe, we are going to have problems. And he surrounds himself with men from his tribe. This will never lead to development. It will continue to lead to internal struggle. And once you have that internal struggle, people no longer feel the spirit of nationalism. They are no longer nationalists. They all want to succeed from the state because they feel that when their man is not in power, when somebody from their ethnic group or religion is not in power, then they are not secure. It's a very dangerous thing that we are facing in Africa, and if we don't fix it, I believe we have a long way to go. The sexual violence issue in Sudan, I think this is happening all over the continent. UN have been reporting a lot, Edward. I think in Sudan just came out, but this sexual violence is all over the continent. And I think our leaders need to really, really do something about it. That brings us to the last issue here, and we are going to Liberia this time. Mayor Koji versus the U.S. Ambassador McCarthy. Edward, you know anything about this story? I think it's been trending for the past few weeks or so. I don't know whether it's beyond a few days or few weeks. So what happened here was that the U.S. ambassador, I think they call him McCarthy, he said, what will Joseph Jenkins Roberts, which is the first president of Liberia, what will he think today about Liberia? Referencing the corruption, the bad governance, the dirtiness of the city. Our mayor is begging for money, depending on donations to be able to clean our city after I don't know, 170 something year of independence. So the ambassador is asking, what will Joseph Jingin Rabo think? Because you would think that after 100 years, if resurrection was possible to come back, if you ask him today in the great beyond, he will be thinking that the country they have left behind is now a superpower in the world. But he will come back and meet a city, a country where people hardly feed, and the capital city cannot be clean if people do not donate $1 or $2, $3. So this is what the man said. It's an insult. It's true, but it's an insult. It's coming from the wrong person, but it's the fact. But Mayor Koji also replied the ambassador. I don't know exactly what his reply was. And I think the Liberians are debating this issue. Should Mayor Koji reply? If the man has said the fact is an ambassador, is a diplomat, should Koji reply a diplomat in such a situation? I say yes, Koji has the right to reply. You know, we have to separate what we call morality from legality. The issue, morally, yeah, we know that the ambassador made that comment, right? But is it legal for the ambassador to do that? No. The ambassador has no right, you know, to come to a country and begin to castigate, begin to talk against, you know, meddle in the internal politics of the country. He has no right to do that. I think he breached the diplomatic code. He's not supposed to do that at all. But when it comes to Mayor Koji has every right to defend his country. He has every right to speak against somebody. When you try to denigrate his country like that, he has every right to speak out. You cannot stop his. Can you go to New York, Paris, London as an ambassador from Africa and just speak to their mayor just like that? No, you can't. So I think the U.S. stop playing this big brother role in Liberia. They are not our big brother. They are not our kings. They are not our lord. We are a sovereign nation with our own right, with our own constitution, and we don't expect America to come and lecture us. They have no right. They don't have the morality. They don't have the authority to come to Liberia and lecture us about our country. That is the fact. Now let's go to the issue, the moral issue now. Have we failed as a nation? Yes, we failed. If Joseph Jingin Karaba come back today, will he be ashamed? Yeah, he will be ashamed. Because we do not have a country. What we have there is a group of people together trying to see if they can build a country. You can add on, Edward.
No, thank you very much. I think I've just listened keenly to you, and I have read a lot of things around this story, especially when the High Commissioner who once declared Liberia to be the dirtiest city into the world. That was a calculated insult. Let us just be very honest. It was a calculated insult. Maybe what the ambassador said, well, he is right, but it is coming from the wrong person. So we are not against the manner in which it was said. We are not against the truth, but we are against the truth. The manner in which he said the truth, that is one. Then we are against the person who is speaking the truth to us. That's on when we are watching about our own domestic politics, how this should be neutral into what should go on at the domestic politics into Liberia. However, just because maybe some people will say you put your mouth where your money is. These guys, Liberian, we all know on numerous occasions they have been into American lobbying. Maybe some of the things that they have been lobbying for are part and parcel what the problems that Liberia currently have today. And most of the time when they go to lobby, they have money. They give them those money. And if they are giving them this money, they are not up to living up to expectation to alleviate those problems that they claim are existing to Liberia. Most of the money that they lobby for, their support or whatsoever thing, it is definitely not taking a reflection into Liberia. So you may say in theory there is democracy, but in practical there is no good governance. So I think sometimes people tend to put their mouth where their money is. Maybe this so-called ambassador, maybe they are aware of the chunk dollars that American government have given to the current sitting government to what? To fight against corruption, human rights violation, even to what? To sanitize the city in terms of up to now if you get it. Because I have been into Monrovia 2 or 3 times. I know how the nature of the city can definitely be when it is during the rain. I have been there when it is during the rain. Sometimes you even start to wonder where I am. So these things are just established for their factor. But we are saying that it shouldn't be coming from the ambassador. So trying to critique our system is trying to support one political. It's just like even trying to cry the government down. And we believe that if he's an ambassador, he's over there, he should support the government of the day, maybe work in harmony with them. If he has anything against them, it should be done on a diplomatic basis. You cannot just go on radio and condemn the government of the day.
Right.
That is very professional. He's not right. Legally, he's not the one that should do that. And if you want actually to help Liberia, it is better he call like the city mayor or whosoever that is responsible, try to work in line with them and tell them how to get the sitting clean, not to go on radio and start to bubuzela his idea or broadcast and he's one of the opposition leaders. That was totally wrong. But the fact remains that Liberia is dirty, Liberia is corrupt, and Liberia needs certain things to sanitize the country. So when we are seeing that, we are watching about the political right of the ambassador, it doesn't happen. But he's actually right to have stated what if we are coming from an opposition leader, if we are coming from any vibrant MP who knows what they will say have been elected, or if we are coming from any elected government officer who would have understood it. What we are saying here that the ambassador does not have that political right to broadcast those things to Buzela. He's sounding like an opposition leader. Somebody is even militating against the sitting government. So to say the Liberian officer does not have the right to react, he does have the right to react because he's indirectly trying to militate against the sitting government. Maybe if you had those things you want to help the government to solve those problems, it would have been better he called them on the round table and have noticed certain problems like this. Let us come and solve them. So by him going over there, he's not sounding like somebody who is there to support the government, rather to militate against it, maybe to seek the downfall of the government.
Definitely, Edward. I really agree with you. You know, this is the issue. An unfortunate part for Liberians, whenever there is a word from the embassy of the United States, it's like it's a word that have come from God. I don't know where this mentality came from. I don't know who told them that America has the right to dictate to Liberian government. You see, there's what we call diplomatic language. When you are a diplomat, you have a diplomatic language. And that language is a language of respect for other nations, respect for other people's culture, respect for other people's sovereignty. You cannot go to other people's country and begin to dictate. American embassy in Liberia has been meddling into Liberian politics, and the opposition and the ruling party do not have the ball to put the American embassy to where it belongs. They have never done that. Okay, we've seen opposition in Liberia having a demonstration in front of U.S. embassy in a domestic issue, calling United Embassy to intervene. We've seen it in the 16 billion protest. Liberian going to the United States Embassy to intervene because there is a missing money, and then the Liberian government is not investigating, so they are calling America to investigate. Indirectly, we are creating a culture that says that we are not independent, that we are not intelligent enough to run our affairs. Any politician who cannot criticize Liberian government or go or try to be an activist of certain thing in the country without involving America, then you are not ready. If you think our government, we do not have intelligent people enough to fix issue in Liberia, then don't enter our politics. We don't need America to lecture us. Okay, for anybody to come to your country to lecture you, you need to look at three things. One, do they have the authority to do so? No, France, America, Britain do not have the authority to lecture Liberians as far as the law of sovereignty is concerned, a United Nations Act. Two, do they have the morality? Historically, do they have the morality? Do we say America does not have the morality? Based on the history that we have, we know the difficult history of our past. Those who established that country were free enslaved people from America. And what has America donated to Liberia? Nothing. They have donated billions of dollars to Ukraine as we speak. We have 15-year civil war. They have Firestone. They have exploited that country. How much did America give to Liberia? How much? You see, less than $1 billion. In fact, we have a joke in Liberia. We say George Bush gave us books. After the Child-Stealer War, he donated books to us. Okay? They have donated nothing, but they gave billions of dollars to Ukraine, billions of dollars to Israel, because that's where they have interest. They have no interest in you, Liberian. They do not care. They do not care about you. So you sit there and think Americans have the morality, the authority to come and lecture you. You are making a mistake. We might not like our government. I might be against George Weah's way of ruling. I might be against Jefferson Koji, but I will not be unpatriotic to a point that I will hate my government, I will allow foreign interference. That's not patriotism. No matter how you hate your country, try to fix it. Don't allow a foreign power to come and undermine. It's like you having a family issue, then you call a stranger to come in and stamp and decide for you guys in your house. That's not being a good person. So I think Mayor Koji has the right to respond, to react, and the ambassador does not have the morality, he does not have the authority to speak to Liberia what Joseph Jenkins Robert would think. Okay, he does not have that. And he does not have even the competence to do that. He's not a mayor, he's not a politician that run our country. So those three things are clear. He does not have the authority, he does not have the morality, he does not have the competence. So he should stay in his embassy and talk about American politics. I think that's how it should be. So Edward, what's your final word on everything we discussed today? And then that's it. We will say goodbye to our audience until next week. So your final comment, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we Liberians need to start thinking like what is happening to the Ukraine. I'm not saying that the Ukraine government was that too democratic, was that too liberal, but we have seen when Russia invaded Ukraine, the Ukrainians stood to Volodymyr Zelensky pleasure, and they are now fighting alongside him, telling him that we are going to die for our country because they are watching Russia like a foreign invader who doesn't have that absolute right to dictate what should go on. So can we take this and compare it to what the ambassador did to Liberia? We all know by virtue of fact that Liberia is actually facing most of those problems that he highlighted, but he's not an opposition leader. He's only there maybe to beefing up the government. He shouldn't be there to unseat the government or to sound like an opposition leader. So a patriotic Liberian would understand that. Yes, it is true that we have some of these challenges to Liberia, but should those all be coming from a foreigner? Somebody is here to represent his government. That was selfish, that was unscrupulous, it was unprofessional, it was illegal, and his wording should be bastardized, need to be reprimanded and told into the face. Instead of people should tell me, I know, as you rightly stated, when people think that something comes from the white man, they believe that these things are factual. And it's actually wrong. It's that time the Liberian man think patriotically. I'm not saying the we-led government is all that good, it's all that patriotic, but if somebody does something that is actually even trying to tell Liberians that are incapable of detecting their own problem, let him be told into the face that your rules and responsibility here should not be to interfere into our own internal politics. If we do not call you, keep your mouth shut. Don't put it into our own matter. But people will come, that is naivety in knowing why. So we need to be extrovert in watching a certain thing. Then finally, just to take a reflection on the issue of South Sudan, maybe we need to depoliticize our tribe. Then we also de-radicalize our political system, because that is what is normally happening. If you are having a kind of tribal system that is deeply politicized into South Sudan, and the political system is definitely radicalized on a very negative form. That is why today women are actually the victim of the society. Maybe we'll have definitely time to communicate on the women empowerment into Africa, on if our culture is actually an obstacle towards the progress of women in leadership or not. We have another time to do that. But thanks all and kudos to each and everybody who may have contributed positively in their comment section. Though we never had the time, but definitely we'll have time next time to read your comment. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Edward Amara, my co-host and the correspondent, West African correspondent for Focus on Liberia. Thank you for your contribution. Yeah, my final comment is on the issue of Liberia. We've already spoken. The people must protect their country. The United States is not an angel. The United States is a country with its own interest. They should not lecture us. They don't have the morality and the competence. On the women leadership issue, I've said my point. I am an Afrocentric, but my ideology is Afrocentric, and I have thoroughly studied African history and culture. I believe we have the best culture that we can build on if we can improve. Africa is not a female paradise. It's not a female paradise. There's a lot of things that are wrong, but relatively, we have a very good culture that we should have built and not abandoned, that we can build on to give women more power and go back to the ancient time and see how our ancestors led our mothers to rule on empires. We should be able to go back to that point and not bring this Eurocentric idea that women are supposed to be relegated to somewhere in the kitchen. And then finally, the politics of Africa, we have to do something as young people. We should not watch and sit down and think that these old guys will get tired one day and say, okay, young guys, come and take the seat. No, I think young people everywhere, university student, graduate, you are teachers or wherever you, be involved in politics, be involved, form your own political parties, jump up there, let's sensitize the people, let overthrow these people democratically. Don't take up arms, don't go violent, because when you do that, everybody lose. Let's go in the street and use the democratic institution and unseat this incompetent leader, these bad leaders and inept leadership that we have brought up over the year. Let's remove them, replace them with vibrant young people that are thinking, that are relating to our reality, the age of social media, that are able to read our comments on social media and actually make those changes. Not leaders who are distant away from the population, who do not even who don't care about public opinion. We don't want such leaders. We want leaders who are listening to the people so that we can make change. Because if our country change, we all will benefit. So thank you very much for joining Focus on Liberia and Roundtable Africa. We will be here again Wednesday and bring you the best from around the continent of Africa. With that, we say thank you very much. And we go back to our usual song. We are all Liberians. So Edward, see you.
Yeah, next.
All right. Unfortunately, I can't find it. Let me play some music before I get it.